Scenes from Prizzi's Honor, Mishima, and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, three wildly different films that turned up on one or both of our top 10 lists of the best films of 1985. I'm Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. It's time again for one of the most pleasant traditional duties that a movie critic has every year, and that's selecting our list of the year's best films. Gene has his list. I have my list. There may be some overlapping. There are sure to be some differences. Gene, why don't you start?
Okay. One of my choices for the year's best, not the best, but just one of the choices, and at the end of the show we're going to have a list of each of our 10 in order of preference. But one of the choices is a film that I'm afraid of is going to be overlooked by a lot of critics, maybe even this guy sitting next to me. It came out early in the year, and that makes it tough to compete with more recent films. But The Falcon and the Snowman certainly has not left my mind, presenting two very memorable characters played by Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn, two disaffected young men from good homes who turn into spies against America in an almost thoughtless manner. At first, it's almost a lark, but then the boys, and they are boys, get scared.
I'm not stupid, Chris. I read books.
What are you talking about?
I know what it's called. Disinformation. Counter-espionage.
What?
You're backed by the company.
Oh, Jesus.
You're one of them. The CIA is going to picture Oswald, and they've got one of me too, and that's all part of the plan. So it's okay. It's okay. So what happens next? You throw me in the wolf? You throw me in the wolf?
Look at that. It's doing you.
It's the only thing keeping me sane.
Killing you.
It's the only thing keeping me sane. I don't know who my friends are anymore. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who to trust. Don't fool me, people.
Leave your bags behind. We're going to get on the plane and get out of here.
I haven't seen that movie and that scene for almost a year now, and I'm telling you, I didn't recognize Sean Penn when I saw the film for the first time. I don't even recognize him there now. It's a spectacular performance. I related to this film because I think it's very accurate about young people and the way that they can play games that are way over their head. There's a spy story and Sean Penn's portrait of drug addiction. His character, I think, is stoned practically throughout the whole film. This is a very fine film. I really think it's spectacular.
I agree with you. It was directed by John Schlesinger, the same man who made Midnight Cowboy, of course, with those great performances by Hoffman and Voight. And the teamwork here, it's the same sort of thing. The one guy who's kind of the straight arrow, but he's not really so well adjusted either. Right. And then the other guy is really off the wall. And they make a team that works for a while and gets them both in a lot of trouble.
Don't you think he also had a great portrait of the way America is in terms of suburbia? Spielberg does it one way, Schlesinger does it another. These are suburban kids getting into big trouble.
It's a great movie, incidentally. It is on my list.
Hey, you're smart.
Thank you very much. Now let's move on to a comedy that made my list of the year's 10 best films. It's Lost in America, the movie by Albert Brooks about an advertising executive who quits his job, cashes in all of his chips, and talks his wife into joining him on the open road. He figures their nest egg is going to last them for years, but that's before his wife loses everything during one wild night in the casinos of Las Vegas. Now, this is my favorite scene from the whole movie, as Albert Brooks tries to talk the casino owner, played by Gary Marshall, into giving his money back.
You keep all the money. It's just that my wife and I aren't gamblers. That's what I'm saying. That's the distinction. My wife and I represent the few people, and I'll tell you something, there's probably nobody else that's ever going to come and have this happen. So really, probably we're the only two. We represent the people who have taken the chance, and we made a mistake, and then the Desert Inn corrects it and gives it back. There is a warm feeling here.
But you don't think everybody then will want their money back?
No. In the campaign, you make a clear distinction between the bold, who would be my wife and I, and then all the other schmucks who come here to see Wayne Newton.
I like Wayne Newton.
I said Wayne Newton.
What were you talking about? I heard you say schmuck C. Wayne Newton. I like him. That makes me a schmuck?
Oh, no.
No. And then he gets into the Miracle on 34th Street, you know, and he's going to be like that. And Gary
Santa
Marshall
Claus.
says, "But we're not Santa Claus. We're in the business of making money here." Lost in America was a smart, perceptive, very funny movie that was aimed directly at the yuppie mentality, at that elusive dream of complete security inside your own financial moat where the rest of the world can't get you, and in one flash, he's totally wiped out.
I got to confess, this did not make my 10 list.
Oh,
but
okay.
if my list had been 12 long, it was number 12.
Okay.
I had 12 competing for 10. It's very, very funny in all the ways you mentioned it. I remember when we reviewed it, I even laughed at the Winnebago that they picked with a dumb W, and there's nothing dumb about a W.
goes
But it's
upside
just,
down.
It's just, I mean, it is a very funny film. I just thought that there were actually 11 better this year. It's very good.
Well, it is a funny film. You're right.
Coming up next at the movies, another yuppie gets taken for a scary and funny ride in downtown New York.
They're all trying to kill me. I mean, I just wanted to leave. You know, my apartment, maybe meet a nice girl. And now I've got to die for it, you know?
The movie on my list of the year's best films is a hard-ed, scary comedy by Martin Scorsese named After Hours. The movie told the story of a young man in Manhattan who goes down to the Soho district for a date with a young woman that he's just met. And before the night is over, he gets trapped in an urban nightmare in which every possible thing goes wrong. The star of the movie is Griffin Dunn, and here he is trying to explain his incredible night.
I met this girl tonight, okay, in a coffee shop. She gave me her phone number. So when I got home, I gave her a call. She said to come on over. On the cab on the way down here, all my money flew out the window. Then I got to know this girl, and I didn't really get along with her that well. It didn't really work out, so I left. I tried to take a subway tonight, but the fare went up. Did you know that the fare went up? Yes. You knew that? I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about that. So I haven't got enough money to get home until I meet this bartender, a really nice guy who wanted to lend me the money. I mean, he really wanted to give me the money, but, I mean, they'd actually purchased this piece of work here, you know? I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about that. Now, she's also for me, and for this, I don't blame her at all, for the way I treated her friend, and it was inexcusable, so I marched right in there to apologize, but she'd already killed herself. I was too late.
Nobody knows big American cities like Martin Scorsese, whose credits include Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, and Raging Bull. And few people know more about manipulating an audience. After Hours was basically a comedy, and yet the things that went wrong for that guy went so desperately wrong with such an insane built-in logic that I felt a great deal of tension even while I was laughing. The movie is a textbook in how to make an audience feel exactly the way that you want it to feel.
And he did it for me about 90% of the way. And at the end, when a couple of light comedy characters came in, Cheech and Chong, Terry Garr, and Catherine O'Hara, at the end, I thought the movie lost its hard New York edge. And that's my only criticism of the film. Up until that point, I thought it was exactly what you called it.
Oh, but was it on your list of the 10 best?
Didn't quite make it.
Didn't quite make it.
For that reason.
Must have an extremely
I have a
distinguished list this year.
It is a good list this year, even though the
number
year wasn't.
2 on my list.
Wow. My next 10 best film is by America's oldest active film director, John Huston, 79 years old, who began his career more than 40 years ago with a little film you may have heard of called The Maltese Falcon.
Rings a bell.
Not bad for your first time out. And now in 1985, he creates Prizzi's Honor, a very funny and dark comedy on love and marriage and murder and mobsters. Jack Nicholson and Kathleen Turner play hired killers, Nicholson working for a mob family, Turner working as a freelance. They fall in love, get married, and in this scene, she offers to solve one of the family's problems, but her way.
Look, Charlie, the woman comes out of Sal's apartment holding a baby. After Filargi's bodyguard gets him out of his apartment, she smiles at them. She goes goo-goo gaga to the baby. Then she tosses the little darling at the bodyguard, who naturally tries to catch it. Now, while he's doing that, she gets her piece out and covers him. Then you come out of the other apartment, you take Filargi down to the garage. Then she takes the bodyguard back into Filargi's apartment, does a job on him there.
Hey, that's good. For Christ's sake. Where we gonna get a baby? Where we gonna find a broad would do something like this?
Where? Here. Me. We got a fake baby.
Hey, good thinking, Irene.
You guys work it out. I got a terrific dinner almost ready. Just be a couple minutes.
Pop, what's the matter with you? I didn't get married so my wife could go on working.
a classic line. And I love the reaction shots of the two guys. The dad is there thinking, yeah, great, what a daughter-in-law. And Nicholson is thinking, he can't believe it, that this is the woman he married and should be just another woman in the closet.
That scene plays like a little movie of its own, a little 90-second movie.
And there are probably, I don't know how long the running time of this film, maybe 20 or 30 scenes like that. It's spectacular. If you think about it, what you have in this film, based on a Richard Condon novel, is a portrait of a modern two-career couple who fight a lot and love a little. She sleeps with a gun in her bed, he has a knife. Very funny, very true, when they're all both out working. Two great starring performances by Turner and Nicholson, and a superb supporting performance we didn't see by Angelica Houston as his former jealous lover. This is a wonderful film.
A wonderful film. It's on my list, too. And not only for Nicholson, who has given in his career one treasure after another, one performance after another, but Kathleen Turner has really come along in 5 or 6 films over the last few years to develop into really a formidable major actress with the ability to go comedy, and yet she's not flighty, she's not silly. It's comedy with an edge.
And I'll tell you another thing she hasn't done. She hasn't played one of these noble women that so many of our better actors seem to be trapped into. She's willing to play someone who is laughable and tough, attractive and unattractive, and it's a terrific performance. And again, I want to just repeat, Angelica Houston, which we didn't show, only one scene from the film. Okay. She's great, too.
Okay, so lots of good stuff in that one. Coming up next at the movies, a movie that's in love with the movies.
Has he done anything wrong?
Wrong like what?
Has he stolen anything or attacked any females? You?
Woody Allen's The Purple Rose of Cairo is one of the best movies ever made about the movies. It's the fanciful story of a lonely young woman played by Mia Farrow who has a very special relationship with a character she sees on the movie screen in her small-town movie house. She goes to the movie over and over again, and she develops a fascination with this character. In fact, the character starts talking directly to her from the screen, and eventually, in a classic movie moment, he comes down off the screen and starts up a relationship with her. Meanwhile, the actor who has played him also comes to town. Mia Farrow sees these two characters now. She's totally confused as to which is which.
I'm not Tom. I'm Gil Shepard. I play Tom.
What?
How do you know Tom?
Oh my God, I don't believe it. You do. I've seen you in lots of movies.
Where's Tom?
Oh, Broadway Bastards, right? Right?
Yeah. Well, you know.
Honeymoon in Haiti?
Done about 6.
You were scream.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Try to do one a year, you know, just to keep. Where's Tom?
Why?
Well, he's my character. I created him.
Didn't the man who wrote the movie do that?
Yes, technically. But I made him live. I fleshed him out.
You did a wonderful job. He's adorable.
Thank you very much.
I love that dig. I created him. Screw the writer. They always do. The writer always gets it in the neck. Anyway, 3 different stories develop in this film. One involving the rest of the characters in that movie up on the screen who can't go on. That, I think, is hysterical. Second, involving a love affair between Mia Farrow and the fictional character. And third, the love affair between Mia Farrow and the guy we saw there, the actor who plays him. So you got 3 stories going on that are just great. It's a movie that speaks to, I think, people who have had movies speak to them.
I love that it dropped just off the bottom of my list. It would have been number 11 on my list of great films. And from Woody Allen, a consistently interesting and challenging director who makes one good film after another. Now it's time for my choice for the year's best film. And my choice is The Color Purple, Steven Spielberg's heartbreaking, deeply emotional story about a woman growing up with all the cards stacked against her and still keeping her courage and keeping her faith until she finally prevails. The movie stars Whoopi Goldberg in a great performance as the young woman named Celie, who was raised by a cruel father, then married to a cruel husband that she calls only Mr. Here's a scene set in her household as her husband brings home his mistress.
Celie, this Siskel Ebert, friend of the family, picked up a spare room.
I can't move. I need to see her eyes. I feel like once I see her eyes, then my feet can let go of the spot they're stuck in. You sure is ugly.
And there she is standing all alone there. That's the kind of burden she has to carry all through life, the fact that nobody has any respect for her until the end. The Color Purple is filled with good performances, and they bring alive that rural black community in the early decades of this century, a community where there's a lot of pain and cruelty and a lot of courage, too. The movie leads up to a joyous but shattering climax that's one of the greatest emotional experiences in a long time at the movie. So that's my year's best.
Well, I think it's a very fine film and it was high up on my list. What I give a lot of credit to Spielberg for, he was dealing with a very important novel by Alice Walker, which is a black feminist novel, angry at a lot of treatment that black men have treated black women, and the movie doesn't soften it that much. And I think that was brave. Otherwise, it would have been just a sweet little film about somebody triumphing. So the movie's rough and also sweet. It works at both ends of the emotional scale.
You're right. It's a real good movie. Next at the movies, Gene's choice for the year's best film.
For the #1 film of 1985 is the greatest use of film I've ever seen in the sense of the good that it does. The film is called Shoah, S-H-O-A-H. It's the Hebrew word for annihilation, the Holocaust, and it is a stunning 9.5-hour documentary on the way in which 6 million Jews were gassed and burned by the Nazis. Director Claude Lanzmann has gone back to the people who ran the death camps, back to the few survivors of those camps, back to the towns in Poland where the dead were stashed by the Germans, and interviewed every kind of participant imaginable, building a very accurate portrait of how mass murder was committed and tolerated. One of the most amazing shots in the film is when one of only 2 survivors of the Chelmno death camp in Poland is brought back from Israel to Chelmno and stands in front of the church where the Jews were held prisoner until they were placed in gas wagons. And the people around him now ignore him as the film's director asks questions about what happened in that town more than 40 years ago.
Camion arrivé jusqu'à la porte de l'église.
J'entends pas, moi, ça.
Eux tous savaient que c'était des camions de mort, que c'était des camions où on gazait les gens.
Państwo wtedy Państwo wiedzieli, że to były ciężarówki, które gazem truto, czy nie? Wtedy?
Nie, myśmy nie wiedzieli.
Oui, on peut pas ne pas le savoir.
Tam to na nago. Z takimi szalami.
Est-ce qu'on entendait des cris la nuit?
Czy w nocy słychać było krzyki jakieś dochodzące z kościoła?
Pewno, że tak. Nawet jęczeli, tak, z głodu.
Ils avaient faim.
Gémissaient, ils avaient faim.
To było zamknięte, wszystko głodne było.
Tout était enfermé, ils avaient très faim.
Est-ce qu'ils avaient à manger?
Tutaj dostarczano im coś do jedzenia, czy nie?
Nawet nikt nie widział.
Nie wolno było się obejrzeć tutaj. Même on peut pas regarder de ce côté. Même on peut pas parler en juif. Nawet wejrzeć nie było wolno tutaj na to.
Jak szedł szosą, to jak spojrzał tutaj.
Now, they couldn't talk to the Jew, and they ignore him there in that scene. The Jew was invisible to them there, and so were his brethren years ago. What a lesson that scene and this entire film contains. If you cannot acknowledge the existence, the legitimacy of another human being standing next to you, if they don't count as much as you, then surely you are killing them and guilty of murder, whether you put them in an oven or say nothing while someone else does. Shoah is a great film, horrifyingly great. I'll never forget seeing it.
And there I agree with you, Gene. It is a great film. And I'll tell you how I handled it on my list, because obviously it belongs at the top of the list. But I thought a 9.5-hour documentary of this nature, with this subject matter, looks strange on a list with movies like Lost in America or Mad Max, movies like that. So I'm putting it in a separate category, kind of a very special mention, you know, beyond this year's films and kind of a film that belongs to the ages. So I agree with you about its greatness.
Well, the only problem I have with you, Roger, on your analysis is that a month ago, sitting in the same chair, you said and argued for this film to be named Best Picture of the Year by the Motion Picture Academy. Now, which is it? Do you want them to name it Best Picture of the Year, or don't you?
Yes, I would like to have them name it Best Picture of the Year, and that's why I'm putting it above the ordinary commercial films on my list.
Well, okay.
Now, Gene and I are going to review our individual choices for the year's best films, going through our entire list, bottom to top. And my 10th place film is Blood Simple, one of the year's most ingenious and blood-curdling thrillers. In 9th place, Streetwise, the heartbreaking documentary about young kids growing up on the streets of Seattle. Number 8, Lost in America, Albert Brooks' comedy about the American dream of success. 7th place, Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome, a great-looking, high-style thriller, the best of the Road Warrior movies. Number 6, Witness, with Harrison Ford as a cop who lives among the Amish community. Number 5, Ran, Akira Kurosawa's movie about the King Lear legend. Number 4, Prizzi's Honor, the John Huston film with those great Jack Nicholson and Kathleen Turner performances. Number 3, The Falcon and the Snowman, with 2 more great performances by Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn. And in 2nd place, Martin Scorsese's hard-edged comedy of big city life, After Hours. And, of course, my choice for the top film on the list, Steven Spielberg's wonderful, heartfelt drama, The Color Purple.
And now I'll give you my list from bottom to top. Number 10, The Purple Rose of Cairo, Woody Allen's tribute to the movie. Number 9, Back to the Future, a wonderful commercial comedy with a great lesson about how kids look at their parents. Number 8, The Falcon and the Snowman, the story of boys playing at being men. Number 7, Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, Paul Schrader's film of a writer's life and words and death. Number 6, The Official Story, an Argentinian drama about a woman awakening to the political treachery that gave her a baby. Number 5, Pritzi's Honor, the family drama about murdering lovers. Number 4, Streetwise, a heartbreaking documentary about Seattle's 3 children. Number 3, The Color Purple, a story of triumph over abuse. Number 2, Ron, the epic story of a warlord's loss of power but gain of wisdom. And finally, Shoah, the extraordinary documentary on the Holocaust.
Two pretty good lists. You know, people have talked about how this was a bad year for American movies.
It was a bad year.
You know the odd thing? How few foreign language films are really on either one of our lists compared to years past when half of the titles have been from overseas.
It was a bad year for American films, but there were some good films in the mix.
I think you're right. That's it for this week. Next week at the movies, the other side of the coin as we talk about the worst movies of 1985. This week, the ones you don't want to forget. Next week, the ones you don't want to remember. And until then, we'll see you at the movies.